Welcome, welcome, Wise Chat. It's Monday, August 26th. Sorry to hear about that case of the Mondays you have, but Mike will be with us in just a moment to get that checked out. We're going to have a fun time today. See you in a moment. As always, lick the stem, like the stream, get comfy, get cozy, watch as you're on the clock at work, and get ready for some interesting conversation. Be right back for you. Oh, happy birthday, Lady Omni.
Hey, it's Monday. We made it through the weekend. I hope everyone had a good weekend. I would say that my weekend was slightly lacking in free time. I spent a lot of time with my kid over the weekend, which is great. It's a good thing to do. Had a little less time to myself than I would have wanted, but you have unprotected sex and you make choices about your weekends. So is what it is. I was thinking if anyone ever has questions and they want a really blunt, honest take on what it's like to have like a kid, like if you're thinking, do you do it? Do you not want to do it? I was someone that didn't want to do it for a while, then I did, and I like it. Hit us up at wisecracklive666 at gmail.com, and I'll honestly answer any questions you have um, about uh, having kids. So that's what I promise you here. Another thing I'll say about my weekend as we just kind of all get into the classroom. I view the first few minutes of the stream as like, everyone's getting to class, we're kind of ready. I'm kind of just, doing all this. Lexa, I'm going to look into it. I have not checked the email. I don't know if I see one from you, Lexa. So hopefully we have it. Is this the right email? I think I know what it might be, Lexa. There's an email that I'm going to try to get to. If not, I'll get to it Wednesday. That I think I see what it might be. Um, but and I wonder if Henry has thoughts on this. I wanted to watch a television program over the weekend. I had some time on Saturday, and I didn't know what to watch. My favorite show right now that I've really been enjoying is Bad Monkey on Apple TV. It is not a great show, but it is such a good show. It's fun. It's enjoyable. If you have Apple, I recommend watching it. Wisecrack666 at gmail.com. Wait, that's what it is. Or is it Wisecrack Live 666? It's Wisecrack Live 666, Lexa. So if you
I
send an
threw it
email to
back up on the
Wisecrack,
screen.
yeah, resend. Um, but I will just say that uh I started watching Three Body Problem this weekend, and I feel like when Three Body Problem came out, it got roasted. And I feel like people I know who I think are smart and good roasted and toasted it. I know hating on Benny Offenweiss is like a real thing. I know that they, in some ways, wrecked the end of Game of Thrones. I'm just gonna say it. I think I'm like 6 episodes in. I'm very much enjoying Three Body Problem. Am I saying that it's objectively good? Not necessarily, but very enjoyable show. So I'm just gonna say that. Um, Mizu Mark said, "How is having a child change your perspective on having children?" I think it's like really fun in a way that whoa, Eric's kids are college age, so that's crazy. Eric has adult children. Not, I mean, that's beyond adult. You just have real humans. Um, but yeah, I'll just say that I like it a lot. It's made life different, but it's like I think about a lot of things in terms of like ceilings and basements, and I will just say that having a kid, you know, definitely raises the ceiling of your life. In some cases, it makes the basement deeper because I'm going to say a really dark thing, and then we're going to get onto it. Um, but the thing about having a kid that I find terrifying is it makes me think about death a lot more than I normally. It makes me think about my death. It makes me think about what if something happened to my child. It makes me think about what if something happened to my wife. It just really, and I was thinking about this when I was driving yesterday. This is, real deep psychological insight into how your buddy Michael works. I was driving down the street, going to run an errand as dads do on weekends, and I found myself thinking like, oh my God, having a kid is like starting a really good movie or book that you know you'll never get to finish. You know what I mean? Like I'm so invested in the story of this person, but I know that there's going to be so many great chapters to that thing I never get to see unless ghosts are real. Eric's son teaches high school, and that's amazing. High school English teachers are some of the best people in the world. My dad, who worked in sales, told me once before he died that he kind of wished he was a high school English teacher and he thought his life would have been happier. Dark thing to hear your dad say before he dies. I'm sorry that the Monday is going so dark. Eric's talking about how doctors consider 35-year-old pregnant women as geriatric. Yeah, I mean, my wife had a kid before she was when she was I shouldn't be aging my wife. She's older than 35. And people talked about like the geriatric thing. And once a guy at a bar who was friends with my friend told my wife that it was irresponsible to have a kid if women are over 35. Great guy. But then it was kind of fucked up. It was like there's like 3 times I've almost hit a dude because of something they said to my wife, and that was one of them. Again, toxic masculinity. We know that I have toxicity that I'm working through. I've acknowledged it, but sometimes I want to hit a guy. Um, but I will say with the geriatric pregnancy thing that I promise we'll get into it, guys. When when I had unprotected sex, that was a great success. The doctor was just like, yeah, the geriatric pregnancy thing is like antiquated, stupid language. Like it literally means that after a certain age, there's like the tiniest downslope in certain things, but they make it sound, for example, like a woman turns 35 and then the kid is just like fucked. But it's silly. It's silly. It's silly. It's silly. Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about the DNC, which stands for Democrats Need Communism. I'm kidding. I don't think things like that. But yeah, the DNC is the thing that I watched more of than I ever have. In the past, I haven't really cared. The last one was a COVID era one, so that was kind of depressing. But I watched a bunch of it because there's some interesting stuff going on, right? Like in one sense, the we had this crazy thing where our presumed presidential candidate and our in office active incumbent is the word I'm looking for. Incumbent president drops out, and we have what's it called? Kamala Harris, vice president. She takes over. I'm starting to have weird feelings about that. We'll maybe talk about it. We're in a weird time politically in America. We know that we're facing down the barrel of a potential Trump 2.0 era. So, a lot going on with that. And I watched most of the DNC, and I'll say this at the start. There was moments that I found interesting and inspiring, and I'm being dead serious with you guys. I thought like Sean Fain, the union leader of United Auto Workers, I thought his speech was really great, and it was cool to see someone on the DNC stage talk directly to issues affecting the working class and the importance of building political power in the working class. My dude Bernie Sanders gave a very great speech, and again, like hearing someone get up and talk about the need for things like universal health care, the abolition of student debt, medical debt, all this sort of stuff. Really great. There was a very funny moment. There's many funny moments where it was like the same day that like Sean Fain spoke, AOC spoke, Bernie spoke, and then Jon Stewart noted this, and I thought his very good Daily Show wrap up of the DNC noted that Bernie spoke largely about how billionaires are ruining the country, followed by J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, who's a billionaire, and talked about how he's like a cool billionaire. In fairness, he kind of is. Like in terms of billionaires, J.B. Pritzker is a billionaire who's the governor of Illinois and has passed some of the most progressive policy in the state of Illinois and in the country. Like that cannot be denied. But he is a billionaire. I think his family are the heirs to the Hyatt hotels, not to be confused with the Hilton hotels. So, there were moments that I liked. Then Tim Walz, we all know that I'm a little bit Walz-pilled, gave a very nice, inspirational football coach speech. And your guy right here, to get back on parent corner, started bawling my fucking eyes out when I look over and see his kids bawling their fucking eyes out, especially Gus. If you say anything about Gus Walls, I will be toxic masculine at a level that you are not ready for. So come to my house and say it to my face. But seeing Gus Walls like crying and being like that's my friggin' dad, beautiful stuff. I think men should be emotional. Why not? Why not be proud of your dad? And anyone, all the we talked about this a little bit, but all the Republicans and stuff who were mean about Gus, it's just like, oh, because your kids hate you because you can't imagine your child loving you. Like you can't imagine your child tearing up and saying, "That's my dad, I love him." So what you do is make fun of him. A lot of like conservative commentators said horrific things about Gus Walls, very embarrassing things. Some of which as well, kind of going over the fact that the guy is neurodivergent. I share a couple divergencies with my boy Gus, so let's go. But stuff like that I loved, which is why leading up to the last day, I was like, okay, let's see where we go. But a couple things happened. The first was that the DNC decided that they were not going to let a Palestinian American speak. And to be clear, the Palestinian who was in play was a a delegate and a state senator from Georgia. So like I think there was this perception that some people had that what the uncommitted contingent wanted was some like radical left-wing activist to speak. No, it was a Democratic state senator from Georgia. Her speech has been published. I know it was on Rolling Stone, a few other places, and the speech was just like, everyone should vote for Harris. We should vote for Harris. This is good to do. Also, we really need to end the genocide in Gaza. It was a very basic speech, and I don't mean that in like a disrespectful sort of way. But it wasn't offensive. It wasn't offensive. Yes, Chris Maverick, we got to give him the moment. But that was a bummer, and it was a bummer that they did a sit-in that Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and AOC and a few other active Congress people were very much like, this is bad. They should do something. What made it worse? So I guess the last day of the DNC was Thursday, right? What made it worse, from my perspective, is that that on the same day, and this is, we're going to get into our deeper sort of philosophical analysis here, guys. What was very troubling from my humble perspective is multiple Republicans got to speak on the final day. Multiple Republicans who were also, very pro-military, pro-war, border police got to speak. There was this sense in which there wasn't room for an actual Democratic politician to spend 2 minutes saying, hey guys, vote for Harris. This is good, but maybe genocide is bad. But there was tons of room for, active Republicans and media folks to do that. Now, and I think it sort of created this live contradiction. And I think what that live contradiction was, many people feeling like, okay, like, for example, I think some people felt that by picking Tim Walz, this meant that they at least wanted to go kind of progressive. Because in terms of the people who were like live candidates for people who are in play to become the vice president, I think Walz is materially the most leftist. I don't think he ideologically is, but I think he's just someone who, like, policy-wise, most things that Walz has done in Minnesota involve, making material conditions better for working people and children in a very basic sense. But I think what maybe we saw during the DNC, especially the last couple of days, is like, oh, this whole thing is aimed at, conservatives and centrist and non-fascist Republicans and undecided voters. It is aimed at a certain contingent of people. And I think that, we'll talk about some specifics here. At least the way I was thinking about it is like, I tweeted about this over the weekend. Sorry for anyone who watched me have a Twitter meltdown on Thursday. I said a couple things about the convention, and I'm not a very prolific tweeter. I don't often get a lot of heavy RTs, but I got a couple things RT'd into the hundreds and thousands level, which is bad because when you get something political that's RT'd hard, you get some of the worst people in the world responding to you. Shouts to those people. But, I think what I was reflecting on over the weekend is that politics in many ways, in America at least, and I'm curious what you guys think. So Split Fries Media says she needs middle of the road people. Before don't worry, I'm Split Fries Media, which I love the name Split Fries Media, and I love your emoji, your user picture as far as I can see it. Pretty amazing. But don't worry, we're gonna get into this. All of this was a reminder that by a certain metric, politics in the United States of America is like sports. And that at the end of the day, and this is what someone like Nancy Pelosi is good at, the party itself, they want to win. Like that is what they want more than anything else. And let's bracket for a second whether winning is good or bad, right? But they want to win, as Split Fries Media is pointing out. And they recognized that they gave their sort of like slight concession to younger folks, and I guess what you could call the online left
Mattress Firm.
with walls, which is very funny that
It's
was like
the best sale of the
concession.
year. Save up to $700 on Tempur-Pedic. Get matched at Mattress Firm. Sleep at night.
I'm not playing anything. Are you playing something? All right, cool. I heard the Watch Together started playing for me though. Thanks. Sorry for the ad, guys. Henry is doing these separate like sponsor deals on the side that I'm trying to get him to stop, but get money. I can't deny that. But sorry for that, friends. But I think we realize that the Democratic Party as a whole, they want to win. They have determined that just looking at the numbers, the winning strategy is appealing to people who want a strong military, strong borders, who probably
How do you
are
sleep at night? On a mattress from Mattress Firm.
Oh yeah,
So
well,
I
just-
sleep.
yeah. You
I'm
wanna-
getting these
wanna-
Mattress
It's
Firm
the
ads.
best
What
sale
the
of the
hell?
year. Get a Sealy
Can
King
you just
bed
close
for
it for the time being or something? I don't know. Whatever you feel
queen
like works
price.
best. But sorry guys. But I think it's a pragmatic numbers game, and that's what they're going for. And I think that oh my god, yeah, it's doing it for me now too. Sorry guys, we're not trying to give you all of these ads, but we do want you to spend money. I'm gonna do a thing real quick and fight ads with ads, which is that we have a partner on the stream, a real partner, not Mattress Firm. Fuck Mattress Firm. Mattress Firm's mattresses are made of dead bodies. I didn't want to be the one to tell you this. Every Mattress Firm mattress is ground up dead body parts they turn into the mattress. But you know what's not made of ground up spiders or dead bodies? Yes Please Coffee. Yes Please Coffee is one of the most delicious coffees in the world. I'm just going to say it. They do not pay us to say this. I reached out to them. They are our coffee partner. They're a small coffee roaster based in Los Angeles. They sell direct to consumers. They're not like owned by some other corporation. This isn't some weird scammy thing where it's a website that's like, our algorithm, can you answer these questions? It'll tell you what coffee is perfect for you. Sign up for our subscription, and you're just getting like shitty coffee made of ground up spiders. This is really great coffee. I'm currently holding their mix side hustle from the 299th week. This coffee is made by very cool people. I've now hung out with the guy who's in charge of it. We're going to start doing a sort of giveaway with them soon. They put out zines with each release. They come with playlist on the back. Get a little description of your coffee. I mean, this is real shit. This is real shit, guys. So if you are a coffee drinker, check out Yes Please. Use code Wisecrack for 20% off. If you're a child and you haven't started drinking coffee yet, start now. Start now. If your age has 2 numbers in it, you're old enough for coffee. So drink a few cups a day, become the smartest kid in your class. Child-free labor coffee. Alex says this coffee rips. Let's go, Alex Butler. I really appreciate that. But it really does rip, so I really do recommend everyone checking it out. Okay, so I'll pull up the let's start the Harris speech. And do you have the time codes? Oh, duh, duh, duh. Okay, I can do it. Yeah, great. So let's look at a couple parts of Harris's speech, and I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I got very depressed during Harris's speech. Now, I do not want to say that that means that if you found parts of this interesting, inspirational, whatever, I'm not here to yuck your yum. I'm only speaking about myself. Me, Michael O'Neill Burns, got a little depressed during this speech, and maybe we'll talk about why. Now, here's what I'm interested in particular. I'm interested in thinking about, what ideology is. Okay. Now, ideology, a word I know we've talked about before together. If you never heard this term, I tend to go with the definition provided, or the definitions by French philosopher Louis Althusser. That's spelled Althusser. Two of his theses on ideology. One is that ideology represents the imaginary relationship of individuals to their real conditions of existence. I'll read that again, and if it sounds tricky, we'll break it down. Ideology represents the imaginary relationship of individuals to their real conditions of existence. So ideology is how we understand our existence via concepts, ideas. If we're going to think about religion, right? Religion is a form of ideology in which we use spiritual analysis to understand the materiality of our life, of our conditions. If I say, for example, if I see a homeless person living in a tent, I can say, oh, that person's on the streets because they don't work hard enough. Now, that might sound like I'm saying something directly about the situation, but what I'm really doing is using this imaginary relationship of individuals to labor under capitalism to analyze the fact that someone's unhoused, right? There's someone with a different ideological apparatus could say, that person is living on the street because God hates them. That person's living on the street because we live in a society that doesn't offer housing as a human right, whatever it might be. But we use ideology to mediate our understanding of the world, and often the way it operates, and this is why ideology is powerful, it's a thing that happens when we don't know that it's happening. It's sort of, to paraphrase Donald Rumsfeld or whatever, it's stuff that we don't know that we know. So even if you don't know the word ideology, you have an ideological understanding of reality, as do I. Another thing that Althusser says is that ideology has a material existence. Now, if you know some stuff about like the Marxist tradition, you could say that ideology is what we think of when we think of like base and superstructure, how there's base material conditions, and then a superstructure being cultural ideas that facilitate the thing. I'll give you an example here. Industrial labor, at least for certain chunks of human history, has been the driving economic force. That's the base of things. Well, think about the function of religion at certain points in history. Think about the Protestant work ethic, a version of Christianity that says that we earn our salvation and that we must work hard and be industrious to please our Lord. Well, that sounds nice, right? But what is that really doing at a material level? It's facilitating people working very hard in an industrial context, right? So this is the stuff we think about when we think about ideology. Now, I think what we got to do then is when we're thinking about stuff like the DNC, and when we're thinking about all that, and I would say like right now too, I see some of this happening in the chat. Let's just not worry right now about like, you guys should vote for this person. I'm voting for this person. Guys, let's not worry about it right now, okay? Let's not worry about it right now. If we're going to worry about it, let's just say this. And I'm just riffing off Socrates, I think in book 1 or 2 of the Republic here. Almost anyone who desires that much power is sus on all sides. They're all sus. They're different types of sus, but they're sus. So we can just agree on that. Now, yeah, Guillermo says theology is anthropology with a God complex, for sure. Now, I think what we can do then with things like the DNC is try to just think about what is being said at the level of ideology. Now, something that I, in particular, we're going to watch this clip in 2 seconds, found and find interesting and language. Oh, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Am I here still? Am I here? Great. Something I found disturbing is how much the language used by Harris in her acceptance speech mirrors the language that we have heard in the past from Republican presidential candidates. Now, not Trump so much because he's Trump, but there's things, and in the clip we're going to play, we're going to see this. There are things that Harris said that if Mitt Romney said them, or John McCain said them, or George Bush said them, I don't think we'd be surprised, right? And I think that there are these things. Let me frame it this way. The ideology, or the presented ideology, or the accepted ideology of the Democratic Party in America, I think can be, at least vaguely, like, well, they are the ones who care about people. They are the ones who, want workers' rights to be better. They're the ones who value science and education. They're the ones who, want people to be able to do whatever they want with their genitals and their hearts and all that sort of stuff. But I think ideologically what might be happening under the surface is an eliding, a sort of not seeing the fact that a lot of what they want materially are, like strictly enforced closed borders, economic structures that give enough to the people while still being quite favorable to business. An American military apparatus that wields power over the bodies and lives of others internationally to enforce certain economic and political ideologies. All of these things are like Bush era policies, whether you like it or not. We actually have a video we're filming today that a really awesome new writer worked on with us, who I'm excited to talk about, on immigration. And the video we're filming today, the gist of it is like, we think that a lot of these liberal parties in the West are helping us avoid fascism, but they still advocate for immigration and border policies that are fascist. So let's watch a little Harris and we can talk about this.
To our security, negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave troops overseas. As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
Yo, look at Emhoff. Emhoff is not clapping. Oh, Doug is. Ella, not clapping. You gotta respect it. You gotta respect at this point. Ella, very well dressed, very cool. It's just like, yeah, I'm not gonna clap right here.
And I will fulfill
I didn't notice that before. She didn't do that.
our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families, and I will always
And the sacred thing is
honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice.
So, she says that America needs to have the strongest and most lethal fighting force in the world. My one thought I had was like, man, there was a point where Bernard Sanders was maybe going to be the presidential nominee. You cannot imagine those words coming out of Bernard Sanders' mouth. You just can't. I know some people who I'm frenemies with, who in 2020 thought that Elizabeth Warren needed to be the person. I cannot imagine those words coming out of Elizabeth Warren's mouth. I'm sure there's other examples we can think of here. They definitely wouldn't come out of our gal Marianne Williamson's mouth. But, you hear something like that and you think, why are we cheering that our country needs to have the most lethal military force in the world? Why are that many people so excited about it? Imagine, if you will, and this is me editorializing a little bit. All this is me editorializing. What am I saying? Imagine if we had a presidential candidate that said America will have the strongest educational system in the world, strongest healthcare system in the world, the most advanced infrastructure and systems of transportation in the world, the most advanced and scientifically informed response to climate change in the world. You know, but we didn't see that. Um, and Chris Maverick, there was no point. Well, Chris Maverick, there was no point in which Bernie was going to become the nominee because they wouldn't let him. I would argue that in 2020, he was very on track for that. I'm kind of going back up the chat, and I see that Sandhill Farmer said sacred and civil religion. Yeah. So when we talk about the necessity of having a killer fighting force, and by killer I mean literally like killing lots of the most people, the best. When we talk about that sacred duty, there is a civil religion aspect going on here. There's a sense in which it feels like what it means to be American, that what it means to be patriotic is so intertwined with the military, so intertwined with the capacity to kill better than other advanced nation states, because that's what we're talking about. That is the material reality of what is being discussed here. And I think for some folks, it can feel a little bit deflating when, for most of us, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think most of the people that would be considered like in the base of the Democratic Party, most people that are progressive or left-leaning in the country, I don't think those are the things they're thinking about a lot. I don't think those are the things they're worried about. Now, again, politics is a sport. It's a game that has to be won. They're just trying to win the game, but it didn't feel good. Henry, I've really been going for it today. If you feel like it, jump in. I'm curious if you have thoughts on this.
Yeah, I have a litany of criticisms from the left I feel aren't going to be addressed in a pragmatic sense, but I think within the realm of winning the center, the one thing I'm kind of left with a bad taste in my mouth in is the lack of policy follow up or arguments for that. I'm honestly a little worried
That's
they're going to
huge.
run the weird criticism into the ground. I'm thinking about Al Gore and John Kerry and how they both were criticized for being snobby and elitist. And I think Walz did it right when he came out calling people weird, because he followed up by saying, "I just want to fund the schools, fund the roads, get some practical policy
Yeah.
down." When I see Obama making dick jokes about Trump on stage, I worry that we're going too far in one direction with no substantive arguments to really make things more than cheeky, sarcastic irony and fun. And yeah, I think a certain class of liberal is really gonna love the punch down a bit too much, and I'm worried that can damage the election outcome.
Yeah. I do want to respond to something in the chat. So Preston D. Luffy said, I understand all the valid criticism here, but would everyone be happy with Kamala actually want Trump as president? So here's the thing, Preston. I want us to sort of like bracket that. And I'll tell you why again. Like, there is a real practical either or here that you are not wrong about. I don't think that should preclude thinking about the ideological underpinning of what's being said by these people and what they represent. And I'll even be like very real with you here. I am gonna vote in the upcoming election. In a sense, I'll say my vote is kind of useless because I vote in the state of California, which is going to go blue. And for those of you who aren't in America, just so you know, the way our elections work in the States, we have this electoral college thing. So individual votes don't matter. The votes matter at the state level only. And actually, in many cases, they matter in even more of like a microcosm. Like, I am going to fill out a ballot and drop it off in a box near my local library. I'm going to tick the box for Harris and Walz. As of right now, and Porkins, do not try to fact check me. Yes, it will be the first time I vote. But like, I'm going to do that. I will say, if I had a friend who said to me something like, I feel like I can't, and I feel like by voting for these candidates, I'm endorsing things that I don't feel good about, I would not judge them. I think that vote shaming on either side is problematic, and that is my take on that. Where is this? I saw someone say something I liked. Guillermo said that hyper reality is too addictive to give up. But oh yeah, and then Sandhill Farmer, who's going off today, says my big criticism of conservatives, they've been so obsessed with winning, they've explicitly endorsed heinous things. Yes. So here's the issue then, right? You know, we know that a lot of Republican politicians realistically don't care if people get abortion. They don't care. But because they think it'll help them win certain voters, they'll get on stage and be like, anyone who gets an abortion should go to jail. But a lot of them don't believe that. A lot of them don't believe a lot of the educational policy that's being argued for, but they'll say whatever because they want to win. And the risk, of course, is when that logic is taken up by the other side right here. Yeah, so Chris Maverick is the real superstar here, in terms of explaining what I'm actually trying to say, but in a clearer way than I could. But so all I would say is if you are someone who is concerned about a lot of the things that are, well, I'll back away from that. All I'll say is looking at that line, and again, this is a long speech. You can watch the whole thing if you haven't already. Looking at what was just said in a vacuum very much aligns what Harris is saying with a right-wing kind of hawkish foreign policy. Henry kind of pointed this out, that it would be easier for us to argue about the nuances here if policy was released. So let's see something. Let's go to, I'm going to, on my own side, go to the Kamala Harris website, and I want to see if they have policies up. So meet Kamala Harris, meet Tim Walz, take action. Let's see. So we can meet the president. Okay, so I'm just being honest with you guys here. Let's see, FAQs. Questions about voting, other questions. So yeah, on KamalaHarris.com, unless I'm missing this, there's currently no policy page. Let's see if there's another website I'm missing, but I'm pretty sure that's the one. Official Harris website. Sorry that you guys are
I've pulled
having
up
to
the
sift through this.
KamalaHarris.com, so that's just kind of
Yeah.
floating behind you right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can look around. I've been looking around on this end. There's not policy there. So all I have to say is all we have to go on at this point are examples like what is getting said in clips like this. So just from watching that speech, we can just say that it seems like a priority is strong military force. So and earlier in the speech talks about borders in a really intense way. So let's watch a little bit further on. This is just a couple minutes later. We're kind of still in military guns rip land.
Against Putin's aggression. And as president, I will stand strong with Ukraine and our NATO allies.
I was going to say any sort of, I like that I didn't mean to stop right at Ben Stiller, but hey, there you go. Creator of Severance, Ben Stiller. Zoolander himself. There is always something slightly weird to me about a room full of thousands of people.
Zoolander got a
cheering-
666.
Hell yeah! Cheering this much for anything. 666. Thanks for being here, especially on a Monday, guys. Really appreciate it. Hey, if you're just tuning in, this is Wisecrack's Case of the Mondays. It is our Monday stream. It tends to be a little more casual. We're doing a little media analysis of the DNC. But, what are you going to do? We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll see if Wednesday can be chill. And a reminder as well, next Monday we will not be streaming because it is Labor Day in America, a day we celebrate people who are going into labor, people that have had labor, things of that nature. Hopefully you get the day off work. If you don't get the day off work, hopefully people at the place you work are not dicks. Let's keep going.
With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done.
I just want to say no one who's ever said they're working around the clock has ever been working around the clock.
And let me be clear. I will
So it's like a point too where she says like, okay, hostage deal, ceasefire deal. Yeah, sure, great.
always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself.
So when she says always have the ability to defend itself, I just want to be clear here. What is being said at a material level is America will always ensure access to high-grade weapons to the Israeli military. I think it's important to remember, sometimes we forget this, when we talk about our country always being supportive of the Israeli government, Israeli military, like we are talking about facilitating the military of a government helmed by someone who is far to the right of Donald Trump, who is one of the most conservative and fascist leaders of any, what we could say, nation or something like that. And so what she's saying there is like, we will ride for our dogs, even if they are fascist and run a brutal military. Again, stuff that doesn't come up in this. And like, I'm going to say a thing. You can Google this if you need, because it's a real thing. Like it's a thing where there's been investigations in the Israeli government of the fact that IDF soldiers are raping hostages. It's fucked up. I don't like, if you haven't heard this, I don't like sharing it with you. But so for many, I think that it feels uncomfortable to hear that level of commitment to supporting a military that we also know is like, and again, not trying to be glib here, not trying to be overly ideological, but a military that's just killing a lot of kids. Like lots of children are dying. We were talking earlier about having a kid changes you. I'll say this, not that I've ever been like stoked on children dying. It horrifies you even more when you hear about horrific things happening to kids when you have a kid or kids that are about your age. So you hear about like children that have sniper, bullets through their heads.
How do you sleep at night? On a mattress
Oh
from
God,
Mattress
we're
Firm.
getting added up.
So I
Maybe if I
sleep.
click play, will it go
It's
away?
the best sale of the year. Get a Sealy King bed for a queen price.
Let's watch a little bit more here. Hey, thanks for being here. I just clicked over and
Get
the
matched
chat's,
at
the
Mattress
chat's
Firm.
going hard.
Sleep at night.
The people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas.
Oh, that ad's going. Shut up about the mattress.
We're being invaded by Mattress Firm, I guess. It's not playing on my end, but now we get to watch Michael hear it.
Fucking hate Mattress Firm so much. Mattress Firm's fascist, I've just decided.
Because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival.
I just want to say that like sexual violence is bad. People getting killed at a music festival is bad. Just want to say that at the outset. Sometimes with political ideology, we can note what is said and what is not said, right? So in this speech, there's an emphasis placed on sexual violence perpetrated against Israeli citizens and, violence at a music festival, talking about, innocent young people killed at a music festival. Those are bad things, right? Those are bad things. Any like weird self-presenting leftist, who's like, fuck it, that's good. They just kind of are being a little bit sociopathic. But we'll go forward. But note that what's not mentioned is the well-documented sexual violence perpetrated against Gazans by the Israeli military. What's not mentioned is the needless and ceaseless violence against young people and literal children, children who've never seen and probably never will see a music festival in their life, by the Israeli military. It's what gets left out, I think, is the stuff that's been concerning to some folks.
At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating.
Now, note when there's discussion of violence against people in Israel, it's we've heard who has caused that, right? Hamas has been identified. This is the part where I started screaming at the television. And I'll tell you what bothered me. Maybe it doesn't bother you. Maybe I was being too extreme. I have emotional peaks and valleys, But it stood out to me that the way the horrors of Gaza were discussed would be equivalent to someone talking about an earthquake or a tornado. Like the victims of the tornado, blah, blah, blah. But it's like people are doing it. Like the stuff she's destroyed, the horrors those people have faced, like people are just doing that. A military's doing that. And it's a military that 30 seconds earlier, you committed to giving weapons to endlessly. Just to confuse citizens.
So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again.
Safety from what? Lives lost due to what? Starvation because why?
And the scale of suffering is heartbreaking.
Who is causing that suffering at such a large scale?
President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
Now, it's cool that people cheered that last line, and I know a lot of people got excited about that last line, but it's sort of what comes before it, which is tough.
To defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terror.
All right, so, and we can have different thoughts on this, guys. We just can, and that's okay. I hear an ad. Fuck, why is it happening? Oh, it's a little baseball ad in the corner. Oh my God.
That one's on your end. I'm luckily in the safe, but yeah.
Oh, but I stopped it. Stop seeing this. Oh my God. Oh, now I'm hearing Lionel Richie again. Guys, I'm losing my mind. But hey, it's, yeah. Chris Maverick says, turns out culture, ethics, and ideology aren't necessarily simple. They're not simple, guys. And that's why, I'm not here today to be like, here's a political analysis of it. Here's who you should vote for. Do what you want. Vote. Don't vote. Either way, you'll regret it, That was a paraphrase of Kierkegaard's Either Or, by the way, not me saying anything to determine it. But, I just think we have to recognize that there are ideas and material realities beneath the surface of these things. And we need to understand why, for some people, these things can be a little bit disturbing, upsetting, whatever it might be. And, I think when we look at the ideological underpinning of the Democratic Party, I think it's like the first thing or the most important thing is a desire to win at all cost. Maybe that's good. I don't think Trump being president again would be good. And I think that desire to win is the primary motivating factor, which means that an ideological shift to the right, a policy shift to the right, is fine and good if that supports the end of winning the thing. And, I think that what we see is a contradiction between the idea, because something we've heard about recently, right, is people have discussed how activists and organizers who are good, I really respect people who kind of, put their neck out to do stuff politically, that there's pressure to push the party, to push the government to be, harder on Israel, to push back against Netanyahu. All, there's all this discussion, and it's good. We're winning. It's great. There was people when Walz got the nomination, there was people on the old Twitter who were like, see, we pushed and made sure one of the more Zionist VPs wasn't picked or whatever it might be. But I think what we're seeing here is that maybe it was more a political calculus of like, we give a certain contingent Walz because they like him, but also people that like football and hunting will like him. And our policy is not going to speak to, concerned young people. Our policy is not going to speak to, Muslim voters in Michigan who are concerned about U.S. foreign policy. We're not going to be speaking to, folks riddled by student debt or medical debt. We're not going to be speaking to, progressives trying to organize to have a more just world in terms of housing or anything like that. We're not going to be speaking to those worried about climate disaster. Primarily, we want to make sure, more centrist Republicans are voting for us, and they're the one pushing us across the finish line. As someone pointed out in chat earlier with the person with the fries, the half fries, something, that's probably the winning strategy. Probably going to be the winning strategy. So we're not saying that like that's good or bad, but that is the strategy at play here. If we want to talk about like voting, we did a video on voting, and you can talk about that. And again, too, hopefully it's okay to realize that like you can, how do I phrase this? We have to accept, especially when we're just thinking about this from a terms of like ideology or ethics or whatever. You have to be able to think critically about, let's say, your favored party in a way that precludes you tacitly supporting the other guy, right? Because then where's the limit to that? Does that mean that like up until being just as bad as Trump, that I saw someone bring up Nick Landon in the chat. I'm curious what's going on there. I you know what I'm saying, guys? Like, it's at what point does it become like, as long as the Democratic candidate is 1% better than Trump, we still vote for him? And also, I just think about this: like, if they're going to campaign on making America better for workers, which they have, they're going to talk about making America better for the middle class, which they have. They're going to talk about education, which they have. Then I think it is fair that we're at least analytical and vaguely critical about what those policies are and how much they match up with those sorts of things. So, and, like a lot of people will say, like, it's a tough hang for some people. I think it's a tough hang for folks who want to see America go in a different direction. It just is. I think it's a reminder for some people that what the center is still pretty far right in America. I think it's hard for some people to realize that, like, the rhetoric you hear in a lot of that speech is like, conservative. A lot of the pro-military, close off the borders, friendly to the economy stuff. This is stuff that conservative parties around the world talk about. There wasn't any discussion in that speech about any policies about healthcare, education, or the environment. And it just, we gotta be able to say that. We got to be able to say that. And again, like, I think that, like, what is maybe happening here, I'm looking at the chat and I appreciate y'all and hope that everyone knows that, like, our hope for the chat is not that that's just like, oh, Michael and Henry are right all the time. We're not. Henry might be. I'm not. But when Penny says anyone who doesn't want Project 2025 needs to vote Democrat, I would just say what we maybe need to do, guys, is think on two levels. We can think on a practical level, and we can think on the level of, like, ideology analysis. So, for example, I think you could hold both these thoughts in your head at once. You guys could probably hold more thoughts than me. I think many of you are smarter than me. I think we can say something like, in practical terms, I'm going to vote for the Democrats because Project 2025 is terrifying. Trump is terrifying. And I at least want to make things less bad for working people. And I want to make things less bad so that there are conditions for organizing to push things in a better direction. So I can say that. And then I can also say, and now this is not me, I don't know, I don't think anything, but I could hypothetically also say, along with that practical decision that goes in line with what some of you are saying, I should also be able to say it's deeply concerning to watch a party that claims to represent, working people push so far to the right and operate in sort of this jingoistic pro-military terminology, and indicate that military strength is more important than things that take care of its citizens, right? I think that you should be able to do that. I saw someone bring up Narcan, and I'm not totally sure if I'm saying this in the way that you're saying this, VoxX, but yeah, never mind. I think I get what you're saying. Yeah, fentanyl's bad, but the solution's not more fentanyl. Yeah. I don't know, Henry, but put it all together. Make sense of it. So, do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Man, yeah. There's too much historical precedent that makes me question why things can't be more progressive. I'm thinking of it's something that's been circulating, but just the story of Reagan cutting off Israel's access to arms when they were being aggressive towards Lebanon in the 80s. And also just the history of Roe v. Wade not being codified and where that ultimately led. And it just, I don't know, it combined with the final speech of with Kamala's final speech just paints a picture I don't like.
Is anyone else getting an ad right now? I'm hearing the Mattress Farm again. Guys, I'm gonna do a crime against Mattress Farm. But yeah, I think Henry, do you want to keep going? Sorry, I got distracted by the Mattress Farm thing.
Sorry, I don't really. I feel kind of incoherent on this aside from my general vibes and feels. Again, though, just like Harris's final speech being so dedicated to the center, best case scenario is she's pandering, but that still paints a picture of well, then what can I take seriously as far as what's being said versus what's cynically being thrown out for votes?
Yeah. And I just think that I guess what I'm encouraging, if anything here, is because here's what we saw. Here's what we see at the DNC, right? There's those guys and there's us guys, and we's guys are the better guys. You know what I mean? It's us or it's them. Now, I think if we could get philosophical for a second, when we think about dialectics, right? Sort of, and often when we think about dialectics, we're thinking about internal contradictions. So let me just kind of be a bit broad here. I think we're comfortable with the dialectical tension between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party in America. We're comfortable with that tension, and both the conventions and the candidates exemplify that sort of tension or contradiction. I think we need to be more comfortable with the productivity of internal tension within those parties, right?
Yes.
And that internal tension to the things is productive. So delegates still pushing for a Palestinian American to speak, that's a productive thing. And when we start to have this tendency of and I saw a fucking lot of this from a lot of liberal, I'm such a good person online people who were making fun of Palestinian activists, were shaming them, were saying they were disruptive. Their logic was basically fall in line. Guys, the fall in line thing's pretty fascist. It just is. The fall in line thing is the thing that people hate about the right. So I just think you got to recognize that you don't want to become the guys you're trying to beat when you're trying to beat them. You know what I'm saying? It would be like if you were in a little league football team and another team in the area was winning because their kids were I don't know, wearing brass knuckles on the offensive line or something. Now I sound like Coach Walls. You could say, well, the other guys are doing this bad thing, so we're going to do the bad thing, but we're doing it to beat the bad guys. But then you just become the bad guys. you know? So I think that there has to be that room for internal contradiction. And I think what we have to remember is like, where does this stuff end? If we think about it from the ideological perspective, if the Democratic Party wins this election, well, where is there? I mean, here's what I'll say. I'm almost 40 years old. I've now voted. Let me think of how many elections I've gotten to vote in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess, maybe. And what you hear a lot is like, this one is the important one, and then we'll push them in a different direction. Yes, what you're talking about is important, but this one is do or die. We got to do this sort of thing. And I'll be honest with you all, in my lifetime, things haven't changed that much. There's a few things that are better. I'm not going to deny that, but like, you know, Roe v. Wade isn't codified. Don't have a right to universal health care. Education has fallen apart. Infrastructure has fallen apart. You know, go ahead.
I do think the uncommitted party should continue on making noise because if they signify that they are a viable bloc that needs to be won over more so than the Republicans, I do think the candidate has to pay attention to that. That is on the person campaigning, not the people. It's one of those things where I keep seeing people say like, "Oh, so you want Trump to win because like yada yada." It's like, well, no, Trump wouldn't win if she just like decides to support that platform or those demands.
You think I give it? Pink is on.
Oh my God, sorry. I'm hearing that. I keep hearing the mattress farm. I keep hearing the mattress thing. I keep hearing it. Oh my God. Yeah. This stream is a very particular case of the Mondays. Someone said politics and ideology are two different things. They are. So let's say this, and this is maybe better put what I was saying before. Like, I think what we're saying is like, politically, if you are going to vote for whatever party, that's great. You should do it. Ideologically, we should be thinking about what that means. And I think you can be doing a sort of ideological analysis while still making practical decisions to do what makes things less bad in an immediate sense. Let's maybe do this because it'll be fun. Let's watch Hassan's video about how he got kicked out of the DNC, and maybe end on this because it's funny. For those of you who don't know, Hassan Piker was streaming from the DNC and he got kicked out.
Bro, you think I give it? We listened to her sing like 11 times earlier, dude. Like literally the entire morning was this. This was my entire goddamn morning, bro. I was right there. They're going to show literally my studio in a second. Okay. Like, do you see that band? I was right on top of them. Okay. This guy here, what happened to you at the DNC? We got kicked out. Did Oz actually get kicked out? No, I didn't get kicked out of the convention. I just got kicked out of the studio space that they had given me. And they did it in like a very weird way too. They did it literally during an interview that I was conducting with the New York Times about creators for Kamala, which makes it like extra crazy because it literally.
I mean, I almost find it funny in the first place that Hassan Piker got a media booth.
Like that is a story in and of itself. I don't know if the guy will like.
Are you getting ad audio again? I keep
they are
hearing
micro-targeting you.
It won't go away. If I hear this Lionel Richie song one more time.
Actually right about it or not, but like ultimately it was like a very weird thing to do overall because like they had told me originally that NBC said earlier because of the super secret special guest DNC secured areas that nobody's allowed into. Yeah, it's Beyonce, bro, and it's probably Taylor Swift, maybe, I don't know. But like the thing that's like crazy about it is that you know, they told me that I was fine. Like they told me that I was fine, like that I had this space that they had allotted for me, that it was going to start late. But then it turns out it was not fine. Unceremoniously, out of nowhere, it's George Bush. He's been working on his singing. The Democratic Party has two kinds of people in it. Those who think there should be a Palestinian speaker and those who think they should give the time to Taylor Swift. I mean, it's like, that is true. Some super donor probably had you kicked out.
I mean, that's like, from an ideological level as well, there are people who like had a problem with 2 minutes being given to a Palestinian woman who would have loved to give 20 minutes to Taylor Swift or Beyonce or Pink
So
or
they had a
whoever
box
else.
with their kid to watch Taylor Swift. I don't know how the box situation works. They guaranteed you the space for the whole day and then kicked you out in a way that completely f***ed your schedule. Yeah. But like also the other side of the story is that like honestly, the other side of the story ultimately is that like I was never supposed to be at the DNC. You know what I mean? So I'll take it. I'll take all the moments that they gave me and all of the I will take like every aspect that I'll take all of the access that I got. No way if it was someone big they would have done it earlier. No. News already reported on creators being kicked out of their spot. Okay, that's so cute, chat. That's funny. You guys are funny.
All right, let's see. Yeah, I guess it's not like the most interesting thing in the world. It's just funny that Hassan Biker got kicked out of it. His coverage was good though. It was exciting to watch that and see someone who was so sort of critical of things inside the thing itself. But let's just say this. We're kind of bouncing around a bit today. Like, so there's things that happen in sports, right? Famously years ago, there's a big rivalry between the LA Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants in baseball. And years ago, some Dodgers fans like beat a Giants fan to death or like into a coma or something. Not trying to be disrespectful if I'm getting the details wrong. And you see something like that and you think to yourself, why does it matter that much where these people are willing to kill or people are not willing to be critical about the team they're a part of? And I think that in an election, in a political situation like this, is you should be self-critical if you find yourself saying things like, but it doesn't matter, these are the good guys. It doesn't matter, these are the bad guys. And this is the only thing there is, and you should only do this. If you're going to say it from a real practical level, sure. But if you're getting at that at the level of ideas, I would just like maybe ask yourself, why is that the case? Why is it the case that we can't be critical of the quote unquote good guys? And then you might want to ask yourself as well, what is the benefit of us not being critical? Who wins if we're not? You know what I mean? Like, who benefits if we all decide today, like, we're all the good guys, so we're all voting for Harris and Walz. We're gonna vote early and often. Anything else is bad. Like, who benefits from that? Who wins from that? I just think it's a tough one. Guillermo says hyper reality demands you always play the game. One side wins, the other side loses, and you only cheer for your team. Yeah. I think that's part of it. And I think that as an election season goes on, it's important to be critical and be thinky about everything that we're hearing. Asking ourselves what it means. What's the underlying thing, Sapphic Hazard says votes are not given, they are earned as a cop-out. You vote for the candidates least likely to stand in the way of your ideals. I don't know. It's tough. It's just tough. I will just say, like, I just can't do the vote shaming thing, really. Feels bad. What do you think about vote shaming, Henry?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier when talking about the uncommitted stuff, like it is up to the candidate to earn the confidence of the voter.
Yeah. I just think because again, like if the whole thing is we'll just indefinitely vote for the thing that's the least bad, it sets a potentially dangerous precedent. So, there's a lot more to say about this. There's more we can talk about it. We can talk about this in the coming weeks, but I'll just say that I was not super pleased with how the DNC wrapped up. I think that they said something quite loudly when they said there's no room for an active Democratic politician on our stage who happens to be Palestinian American but there is room on our stage for multiple Republicans. For Republicans that are going to get on stage and talk about how much the military rips. That just says something. If you don't like the thing that says, that's fine. If you like the thing that says, that's also fine. But just, I think some people didn't like that thing was said and that thing was made so apparent. I think for some people as well, to go back to that same example, it's like, I guess it's like this. It's like if you're planning a massive dinner and you have an infinite budget, 20 people are going to be at this dinner, and there's one vegan who's going to be there. It wouldn't be hard for you to say to the chef, hey, can you just make like one vegan dinner? Everyone knows it'd be easy for you to do. Everyone knows you have the money to do it. But the dinner comes, the vegan shows up, and you just look at the vegan and say, sorry, you don't get to eat tonight. It feels extra cruel because it wouldn't have been hard for you to do that. It feels like you're just intentionally saying to this whole group of people, fuck you, vegan. And I think that's what many felt last week, that we know there was time, right? You could have had this Palestinian state senator speak at friggin' 5 p.m. Eastern for 2 minutes at the beginning of the schedule. It wouldn't have been hard. You had time. But you wouldn't do it. And then when people sort of peacefully protest, you double down even more. It just says something. Again, maybe you like the thing that it says. Maybe you think that thing doesn't matter. And that's fine too. You can think what you want. But it says a thing. And if we look back in history, this is something we've talked about a lot recently, I'm going to get this wrong. Who was the party the delegates they wouldn't seat in the 60s? Let me see if I can find this. Was it the Black Mississippian delegation that they wouldn't sit? Sorry guys, I'm just trying to.
I think it was the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party.
Yeah. Yeah. So all I had to say was there was here. I just want to get this right. Mississippi Freedom. Yeah. Yeah. So they were a party that had delegates, and the delegates were not allowed to sit at the DNC. Sorry. And this was at a level where the Democratic Party was whites only. The comparison was made. I'm sorry if I got that a little bit wrong. If someone in the chat knows more, please do feel free to share it. Also, like the stream if you haven't already. That's the only vote that does matter. Oh, yeah, Fannie Lou Hammers Group from Mississippi. Thank you so much for clarifying that. But that happened, right? And the Democrats went on as it was all good. And we look back historically and we think, oh, I was real fucked. So 64 DNC. But all I would say is that I think we're currently living through a time where there's a lot of clear analogs for stuff that happened in the past. And I would encourage us, even if it's for our smug egos, to try to be on the right side of history, right? Because, again, during 1968 or whatever, people were just like, fuck yeah, the Vietnam War. And it wasn't that long after where everyone was like, oh,
I believe
that wasn't the best.
I believe that 64 delegation was backed by MLK Jr. as well, which everybody apparently knows is correct and right, and we're always supportive of now.
Yeah. But no, yeah, we talked about this in a recent video. After the Kent State shooting, most people in America were like, those kids had it coming. At the time of MLK's death, a huge chunk of Americans thought he was like a terrorist. So I just think when we're looking at stuff happening right now, ask yourself, in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years, is it going to look good that a Harris-supporting state senator, Democrat from Georgia, wasn't allowed 2 minutes to speak about the plight of Palestinian people when there's 40,000 of them dead, at least 20,000 dead kids, tons of other kids displaced and maimed? Is that going to look good? Is it going to look good 10, 20, 30 years from now when at the DNC we see people standing up in uproarious cheers when a candidate says our military needs to be a world historically strong lethal killing force? Are in 20, 30 years, are people going to look back and say, that was awesome, the part about unequivocal support and facilitation for Israel's military activities no matter what? Are people going to think that rips? Maybe they will. Maybe they will. But, you know, I think sometimes it's just important that we operate without the hubris of the present. And that sometimes to operate without the hubris of the present means that we should just consider these things. And when we look back, right, when we look back at like stuff that happened in the past of the DNC, when we look back at political decisions made in American history, I just think like, you know, who do we think did the right thing at that point? Who do we think, you know, operated well? Someone said in the chat, their guest choices and words clearly show that they were dressing this up to be a Christian and an appeal to Christian patriotism and nationalism. Yeah, absolutely. The DNC was a big appeal to Christian patriotism and nationalism, a theologically informed, military enforced patriotism. So just something to think about. Someone did say looking good in the eyes of history has nothing to do with politics. History is written by the victor. I guess I just think about, yeah, I mean, and this is the main point here. Vinny Ladder says it, like, we just want to see what can be unburdened by what has been. So that's our main thing that we care about. Okay, guys, we got to go. We're going to be back Wednesday. Thank you for hanging out. Please like the stream if you haven't already. Reminder, Yes Please Coffee. If you're a coffee drinker, click the link. Check out Yes Please. 20% off. If you want to do ideology critique, okay, you got to be caffed up. If you want to read Althusser books, if you want to get into cultural theory, if you want to be like Chris Maverick, you got to stay caffed up. And the only way to stay caffed up is to get great coffee, to make it, to drink it, to read lots of books and do that. Again, if we're final points today, guys, again, politics is a thing, and politics is often practical, and we're making these simple decisions and stuff like that. And then over here we have ideology, the ideas, the theories, the unconscious things that facilitate what we do. Separate things. So let's just think about that. That's all I'm saying. We don't got to agree. But let's just think about it. And let's think about, you know, going to our local mattress farm and letting him know what we really think.
All night long.
Right? God. Listen, if you burn down a mattress farm, I'm not going to be mad at you. I didn't say that because that's not good. Okay, guys, have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday. Like the stream if you haven't already. It helps us out a lot. Check out Friday's video about why cities are becoming like theme parks. There's some good stuff there. It actually gets into like the ideology of cities. Let's just all get unburdened. Let's unburden ourselves until we're completely unburdened. Okay, guys. I think, yeah, Henry, you just got to cut it because I'm just going to keep.
Yeah, I don't want to see any
here.
burdens Wednesday. We'll see you then.